Well, good afternoon, folks. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host for today's presentation. Thank you for joining us for another Flycast Partners webinar. Today's webinar is about what's new in BMC Client Manager, presented by none other than our own Kyle Hamilton. Now, Kyle is a software engineer for Flycast Partners with close to 30 years of experience in IT space. His career started as a network engineer for Pro Systems, was quickly hired by Network Associates as a professional services consultant, where he delivered ITSM solutions around the world for thousands of customers. Kyle's primary focus is on ITIL processes and architecture. He has extensive knowledge of CMDB and asset management projects, and also deals with automation and management solutions such as BMC Client Management and BMC Discovery. Kyle has been a certified consultant for Front Range, Peregrine Software, BMC Remedy Force, Service Desk Express, BMC Discovery, BMC Client Manager, Sharewell, and the list goes on and on and on, as well as being ITIL certified in Microsoft MCSE and many others. Before we get started, Kyle, let me introduce our organization. Flycast Partners is here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience when founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space. We took the best ideas from all these collective experiences and added the best components necessary to grow and become a leaded value-added reseller in the North American IT market. We offer best-in-class implementation services and training in ITSM, ITAM, workload automation, capacity optimization, and enterprise service management using ITIL best practices. Our professional services team can easily scale up or down in order to meet your individual needs, regardless of your size, complexity, or budgetary restrictions. We offer implementation services both on-site and remote, as well as training to reinforce your company's long-term IT success. Our ongoing administration, remote administration support service offerings will enable you to focus on those normal day-to-day operations, saving you both precious time and money. Now, I encourage you to reach out to us directly at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. Or you can visit us on our website. We have an ITSM specialist monitoring our chat through normal business hours, and you can poke around on here and take a look at interesting white papers that you may want to download and share with your coworkers, or take a look at our webinar schedule that's coming up and look for topics that may interest you or the rest of the folks in your office. I also encourage you to take a look at our partner events and things that are upcoming that you may want to attend. You can also share these links with others. Without further ado, I am going to turn this over to the star of today's webinar, Kyle Hamilton. Now, Kyle, I have just handed control of the video over to you, sir. And I see it perfectly. And let's unmute you. There you go.
All right. Thank you.
Very good. You're welcome.
Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. I certainly appreciate you taking time out of your day to sit and listen. Going over the what's new material today, I'm going to focus kind of on two sides of that new aspect. I'm going to talk about some of the outright new features that are available within Client Management 12.7, which is the latest full release, as well as some features that I would imagine, even if there are those on the phone that have used Client Manager in the past or are still using it, are going to be new features to you. But those nooks and crannies that hide some of these features that get slipstreamed into the product can provide some huge leaps in functionality. So I'm going to try and touch on some of those as well. We'll go through those, and I'll try and leave at least 5 minutes. Towards the end, we'll open it up for general questions about product functionality or features and try and get those answered specifically. So what we're looking at right now is the Client Management console. This is the administrator console where you do everything from set up and schedule your initial inventory that scans your network and determines what you have out there so that you can start making decisions about which devices you want to manage and how. All the way to being able to create and deploy operating system images. So this is kind of the console where that administrator sits behind the curtain and builds the software packages and creates the patch distributions and schedules those inventory scans and things of that nature. And one of the new features, or the biggest new updates in the 12.7 release, has been a change in the way they handle software license management. Prior to the latest version of client management, BMC maintained and relied on their own internal software catalog. So they had created a software catalog that allowed you to normalize all of the incoming data from those inventory queries, which comes in massive volume, and it's typically just file names and file sizes and file dates. It's then left up to you and the tool to be able to normalize all that data and make sense out of it and take all of the, those 5,000 executable files and be able to put them in the appropriate buckets and classify them correctly without having to spend time as a customer going in and building that catalog from scratch, which is the case in many cases. BMC software catalog was roughly just a little under 17,000 products deep, about 16,870, something like that, which I would say probably encompass 90% of what's out there, what you might find in typical enterprise. With the latest release, they've changed over to, and some of you might even see up in the upper right-hand corner, a little Powered by Flexera icon. So they've now licensed the Flexera software catalog to provide that same feature and function within client management. The big difference being is that catalog went from, as I said, a little under 17,000 to, if you look right down at the bottom, you can see that's right at 133,000. So what Flexera does is essentially guarantees that you're going to find and be able to identify correctly every last piece of software that could be out there running on your network. Outside, of course, anything you're custom developing or proprietary software, so that again you don't have to spend time building that catalog yourself, and it's comprehensive enough that you can accurately find and identify and classify everything that's out there, whether you need to track it for licensing or not, but to be able to make decisions about what to do with it if it's unauthorized, and how to treat those applications as they get identified. It also gives you the easy ability of having this catalog when it comes time to, if you want to start tracking software licensing, to go in and be able to create a dashboard for all of those products out of that catalog that you have software sitting in, so that it can automatically create this dashboard view for you and present all of those identified applications and the quantities and things like that, so that you can start tracking the difference between what it's finding out there on the network is being installed and what you actually own and or purchase. So you get that differential over here and lets you know whether you need to go buy more or hold off based on your input in terms of your license counts, and those can be added within here, so that as you add licenses, that software catalog will continuously update the installed copies that it finds on devices on your network, and as you keep up the purchases of additional seats and additional quantity, then you have easy ability to go in and simply check a box in that software catalog and have a dashboard like this available to you for all 133,000 apps very quickly. So it's greatly speeds up and improves your capability, not only identifying software, but then being able to easily flag it for software license management without having to spend time calling out executables and file names and such. Now, the second big component that was added within the latest release of client management was right here in the middle in the mobile device management module. Prior to this release, BMC relied and partnered with AirWatch to provide mobile device management. So in an effort to alleviate that reliance on a third party, they built in mobile device management functionality directly into client management. And because there's also a lot of customers that were using BCM and AirWatch or some other MDM tool, and they were repeatedly looking to be able to consolidate, and be able to manage everything, mobile and desktop server, all in a single interface. So with this release, they've also begun that process. This is ongoing, in that they are adding capability in the next release for Android devices. This current release supports iOS. So they'll be expanding to allow you to manage Android devices as well. It doesn't affect what you can find out about and what you can discover. You'll be able to identify everything. It boils down to what you can actually manage through client management, which today is just for iOS. So they have created a console or section here within the console so that you can configure everything from your Apple certificate and Apple ID, which identifies you as a customer or user of Apple, so that you can then use their store to publish applications through and make those available to those mobile users using this console, as well as being able to then be able to deploy what's referred to as a profile to those mobile devices. So much like the standard client management agent that gets installed on desktops and laptops to manage them, these profiles would then be installed on the mobile users, mobile phones and tablets, and that profile would give you the ability to control the settings for that mobile device. You can see the different tabs, different capabilities that are offered, all the way from being able to configure their security restrictions and screen locks and number of pen attempts and things like that, to general restrictions in terms of what they can use on that device, what they can't use, all the way to being able to define blackout lists and white list of applications, so that you can, to a granular degree, control how those mobile devices will behave and what they have access to and visibility to while they're connected to your network. You can configure, those network settings, and this will allow you to see the little ones over here in the tab column. That simply means that there's currently just one configuration for that, meaning that if I need to configure more than one network, maybe there's a guest network and maybe a couple of others, so you can go through in each of these and configure multiple settings to support multiple network accounts, multiple email accounts. So again, maybe not so much looking at as being able to control the device as much as being able to give them access to everything they need through these profiles as well. So this is where you can configure the different profiles, guest profiles, staff, executive profiles, things like that, so that different devices with different profiles installed would and could have, different passcode restrictions, different, app restrictions and things of that nature. Now, it also allows you to, through that profile, be able to issue commands to that device, so that through here, you can go in and do everything from like wipe the device, if you need to update or install that profile, so if maybe you made a change, all the way to being able to wipe it. So if it walks out the back door of the property and you lose contact to it, lose visibility to it, you can issue that command through that profile to wipe the device, or as well as the lock, where you can display a message that simply says bring it back. So that way you can easily make sure that those mobile devices that are connected to your network and have access to corporate resources are properly secured and not walking out the back door with not only the property, but maybe valuable data on it as well. Now, one of the next things I want to talk about was added in 12.7 is the inclusion of some new remote or web-based consoles. Prior to this release, everything, as I mentioned, was really done through this interface. This is your interface where everything was viewed and built. Now, with this release, they have created some specific consoles that you can use. The first one being a remote console. So you still have the functionality through the standard client management interface to open up a remote session, but this would give other users, again, they might not have any other access. They don't need to build software packages. They don't need to administer software licensing and things of that nature, but they might have a need to be able to support customers and be able to assist customers remotely. So that give them, a specific console you give them access to, and they log in. And so when they hit this page, they authenticate to it, and that would give them access. So you can give them access to everything, or it could be a limited number of devices that they have the ability to remotely control, so that they could have those sessions going in here. I just open those up within the little web console to the right, and I could pop open a dozen of those and be able to hop back and forth within this web interface to provide support to multiple users very easily, without having to worry about restricting access and locking down permissions, because they're logging into that standard administrative interface where everything's accessible. So this gives those users that need that remote console access and nothing else easy access to be able to log in and remote in to the machines that you give them access to or they have access to. Now, while I've got this remote window open, I'll go ahead and mention the screen that you see just behind here, and I'll bring it up. This is on a client desktop that I've remoted into that's running the client management agent, and you'll see down in the system tray down here. And if you want to, you can configure that agent to allow users to interact with it. And one of the key ways is to be able to open from that agent this My Apps window. My Apps window is a self-service console provided through client management that gives you the ability to take applications and advertise them or expose them to customers through this My Apps portal, so that those things that you've built and you've packaged up and created, you can, instead of having to deploy it across the enterprise and potentially people that don't need it or don't want it, you can simply make it available to those users, specific users or everyone, through this My Apps window, so that if it's a piece of software they do want, they do need, and they can have access to it easily. Just click on the available options, or it could even be some other kind of scripted activity that you've created with an operational rule. So it may be fixes for common issues and things like that, just to help users so that they don't have to find their way through start menu folders and things of that nature, so that common tasks and things that they might have use for, you can construct and expose those so that if they need it, they've always got it down there in the system tray where they can pop that window open and grab that desktop app or that browser application, or execute some command to clear their hard drive space out without having to engage the service desk or having to contact somebody that has access to that administrative console to go in and push the buttons and pull the levers to deploy that software through there. So it's not a new tool with 12.7. This has been around for a little while now, but seldom used, but very powerful feature, especially when you get into talking about creating some of those operational rules to resolve issues, from restoring users' desktop shortcuts to remapping home drives that have been disconnected and things of that nature, so that you can save the service desk and the support team a whole lot of headache by giving access directly to that. So great feature to take advantage of. And by the way, that's another area where having that Flexera catalog available makes it easy that those applications are easy to flag for putting in the My Apps portal by simply selecting any one of those 133,000 in that catalog to say, expose this and allow users to request it. Now the next catalog, or sorry, not catalog, console I want to mention is not that one. Let's go to, so this one is the reports portal. And this is nice because this gives users access to the reports within Client Management. So again, they don't have to eat up a license coming in, here to run maybe a software license report, or hardware, inventory report, things of that nature, cost report, which would require a set of credentials and an account to be able to log in. But instead be able to take these reports and expose them through a web-based portal to give them access. Now you still have, you always have the ability to export and or automate these reports in other ways besides the console. So the console's a new view for it to look at, but you always have the ability within the reports to take a report and, you'll see right here at the top, be able to schedule that report, to export out whether you want to give somebody the raw data to work with, and, give them a CSV or XML file that they can consume, or an HTML formatted version that's just the graphical view of the report itself without the raw data behind it, and be able to FTP that, or put that. Several customers that have created on their intranet site or intranet portal a folder that they can have these reports published to automatically, so that managers and executives that want to come in, asset management staff that need to come in and grab reports, can hit that portal site and either get the data through there, or have that viewable report through that interface, without having to manage a secondary set of credentials. Now, the other option is the email, which would allow you to create an email copy of that report as an attachment or raw data as well. So those options are all there, and those can be all based on the schedule that you assign. So it could come out once a day. You could execute it on command to send that data out. So there's other ways to be able to publish those reports and make those reports available external. But one of the nicest ways, I don't know why I turned it up, I was in the wrong view, so let's, bear with me, I'm going to log in here. There we go. So this is another console view that you can log into from any device with a browser. So it's just a URL. And that would allow you to define and publish reports through an external portal to give users access to be able to pull, a summary report. They can get the XML and the raw data. They can click on the HTML and get the graphical view. Oh, sorry, my bad. So, they can go in and click on an HTML view to have, graphical copy, or they can get the raw data right from that portal. And you can easily control which reports are displayed out here and which ones will remain, within the client management console specifically, so that you can control not only what reports they have access to, but the frequency and the data contained within them, of course. Now, the next new portal that I wanted to mention also relates to a new feature, which is the web services integration capability. So within client management, you have the ability now to use both RESTful and SOAP APIs that have been created and made available through this console, so that you can go in and create those web service integrations to external applications, be able to go in and set up and pass API information, REST API information back and forth. And they've given a new console, or created a new console for that. Here again, just log in, through a URL that give you access, and you'll notice that it'll actually show you on here not only the details for your server, but also a breakdown or breakout list of all of the API methods and all of the API commands that are available to be able to integrate client management data, be able to access client management directly through this URL and through those APIs to query out device data, to get software licensing information, and to pull data out of the back end of client management, perhaps to pull it into a BI tool, Microsoft Dynamics, or something of that nature, to be able to report on, Crystal, things like that, so that not only you have the ability to export it or kick it out via FTP or email, but the ability to tap into the database directly, so that you could get that as needed versus having to rely on a schedule that you set up for those exports or those emails to take place. So very useful and very powerful when it comes to wanting and needing client management to be blended in with the environment, whether you're passing this data into your service desk in CMDB so that they have access to all that software and hardware information, or integrating with event management so you can coordinate event notifications and configuration data, hardware, software information, and things of that nature. Now, the next feature I wanted to talk about is called custom menus. And this is one that's, again, not new to this current release, but probably new to even a lot of users that have used this for a long time. And it relates to the fact that within client management, whenever you're looking at a device, whether you're over here in the side menu or whether you're over in the right-hand pane, you have the ability to right-click and pull up the context menu that you see. It gives you access to be able to open up a remote session through here as opposed to the console we looked at, or look at the inventory information and things of that nature. One option you have is the ability to add to and create options within there. And you'll notice right up here at the top, there is a section related to user preferences. And this is often missed because users tend to focus on the core menu items and the wizards that sit on the home page, and don't realize that there's quite a few settings and quite a few options available through this client management console that unless you go in and check the boxes, by default they're going to be turned off and won't have values provided for things like email addresses and things of that nature, so that oftentimes you're not seeing any kind of notifications or getting any kind of alerts or alarms from client management outside of looking at things within the console, things that you open up and view directly within the interface. And email, this is a critical part of several different processes, including the alerts and events, so that you can get notified automatically when that software license count is exceeded, for example. As I said, by default, unless you find and go in here and fill out these preferences specifically, you're just lacking the information, to even be able to tie it into your email server. The big benefit of that is not only being able to get alerts. It could be all kinds of alerts. They're missing critical patches. We haven't seen them in 3 weeks, or they don't have an agent installed on their device. They're trying to execute a prohibited application. Could be all kinds of alerts and events that you can define within BCM, not just so you can get the email like this, but it also makes it very easy to integrate client management into whatever service desk or service management tool you may be using. Almost across the board, they all have the ability to consume email messages and create incidents, create a new ticket based on incoming email. So by having the capability to send these email alerts for whatever defined events that we want to be updated on, those can automatically and easily become incidents within the service desk that you can respond to, versus a simple email that lacks the tracking and the audit trail that you might want when dealing with or resolving an issue like that. It also gives you, of course, the ability to use things like the schedule feature of the reports, so that you can go in and set up those daily schedules to run those reports. And this is even better way than the portal in many aspects, the new web portal, in that the web portal still requires them to log in to determine what reports they have access to and what's contained within them. Whereas with this method, the end user doesn't have to log in and use a password or ID, nor do you have to set up and manage the profile and permissions for them to get into that report console. So a great way to get the software information, hardware information into the hands of the people that need it without having to put them under any undue stress, nor the administrator. Now, I'm going to go back because I kind of deviated through there, and I want to go back to the custom menu option that I was talking about. So right here under system variables is another very important section where you define everything from how you want to scan for those events, right? Things like the software license counts exceeded, or somebody's installed a prohibited application. How often do we want to cycle through everyone and check for any of those conditions or events? Right over here is one called device menu. This is where you can go in and add new menu options into that context menu that's available to you within the topology view, or when you're looking at inventory for a device over in the left-hand Explorer column. And this will allow you to call up specific applications, execute specific commands through that context menu, so you can build up a custom section for your environment based on things you're typically doing, whether you're going in and editing the registry for devices quite frequently, or you're frequently having to open up a command line to run some queries or do some checks real fast, so that when you're in that context menu, the minute you create one of those custom entries or custom menus, it'll add this and give you access so that I can go in and say, I want to go in and edit the registry, and be able to call up reg edit from that menu, or open that command line prompt and ping that device, whatever the case may be, so that you can build a host of functionality that's going to be very specific to your use cases and your patterns, so that even things like manuals and driver updates and BIOS updates and things like that, make those readily available for those devices, so that you can easily and quickly go in and find the update you're looking for that needs to be downloaded and deployed, or be able to look up some key information in that administrative guide or manual for that particular device. So again, tool that I don't see used very often, but one that can greatly extend the capability and functionality of what you can do with devices once you've got that agent on there, beyond the standard and the typical, so that you can give users kind of fingertip control or access to be able to get to all of those quick options, whether they may not be calculator, but I thought maybe as a simple example, different things that you can call up that could be used in managing the device or finding out more about it. Now, I promised about 5 minutes for Q&A. So at this point, I'll go ahead and open it up to general questions on product functionality or features. I'll be happy to address whatever you have.
Well, we do have a question. The first question comes from Eric today, Kyle. And Eric wants to know, is there an ETA for the first 12.7 hotfix? I was told by support not to upgrade from 12.6 to 12.7 because this is yet due. I don't know if you know the answer to that or not.
I do not know the ETA. Even when I worked with BMC, they wouldn't tell us. And that's partly due to the regulations and requirements that they can't give that information out. So all they'll typically say is as soon as possible, or as soon as it's available, with no definitive release date, because sometimes things happen and those dates slip, and so they're real tight-lipped about exact dates. But it's coming soon. I would expect it in the next month. I can't say that with an absolute 100% guarantee.
Okay. With that being said, is there anyone else out there with any other questions? Please go ahead and take a moment. Type your question in the Q&A section of this WebEx. Kyle's more than happy to answer any question that you may have. So please go ahead and type those in there. Oh, looks like we've got another one coming in. Let's see what this one is. Lance wants to know, how do the capabilities of BCM MDM compare to AirWatches?
In terms of iOS, like we talked about, that's in 12.7 today, they're identical. What you typically find in terms of Apple devices and Apple management is Apple defines, they make the rules. They tell you what you can and cannot do with or to an Apple device. So they're providing all of their vendors and partners the same toolkit to manage an Apple device. So typically, if that vendor has taken that toolkit and implemented all the features that Apple has provided, it's going to be this exact, presented differently. They may put it, their own UI, of course, but same options. In other words, nobody, has any more options than this when it comes to managing an Apple device, because Apple's kind of writing the playbook when it comes to what you can and can't do. Now, AirWatch does manage more than iOS. So in terms of, comparing apples to apples, it's been around and in that MDM space much longer, and so you've got support for a wider range of devices. Now, the upside with client management is it's also, got that focus and capability for doing the discovery and, the remote queries and being able to find the devices on the network, whether they have a profile or want a profile or not, so that even without the ability to manage, the Windows Mobile and things like that, you're still getting, with client management, you're getting a comprehensive list of everything that's sitting on your network, whether it's a mobile device or whether it's a switch or a router or, some network printer, all in one place.
And Kyle, the next question actually comes, oh wow, they're pouring in here, so let me move up here a little bit. There you go.
Must have said something.
All right. The next question is, have you noticed an increase of MDM usage with your customers, or has it been more of a niche need?
I would definitely say it is still a niche need. I talk to usually at least a dozen or more customers a week, and mobile comes up maybe 1 out of 12, maybe. I find that it's not a big. It either is they're either full-blown mobile across the board. They're issuing mobile devices, pads, and phones to everybody, or it's kind of BYOD and they don't care and they're not really that concerned. They care, but it's low on the priority pole, typically, the totem pole. I just find that the big focus, and this is primarily because I still see it, most companies are still struggling just getting a handhold on desktops and laptops. And so starting to think about mobile is still out there on the horizon, because I'd say 90% are still struggling just to get the basics done.
Okay, and the next question, do we have any idea of when Android will be supported?
No, again, I don't have any specific dates. That's been promised, or that's been targeted or it's in the next release, but much like the question related to the 12.7 hotfix, that next release is either, I don't know whether it's going to be 12.8 or 13. I'm not sure which way they're headed. All kind of depends on what ends up in the release is what determines that. But as to specific dates for that will, all I know with any assurity is that it's going to be sometime before the end of summer.
Okay, and that looks like that's all our questions for today. Doesn't look like anybody else has anything. Want to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy day to join us to learn a little bit about what's going on with BCM. And Kyle, thank you. We appreciate your presentation. Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
All right, folks. Have a great weekend.